So when Astrid says, I'm interesting, that's a nice euphemism for that was weird. All right. One thing about defining things is sometimes it's fun and insightful if you define them in reverse. So instead of asking you what is management, I'd like to ask, what specifically don't you do? What is it that you've told yourself, I'm a manager, I don't do this. I give it to somebody else.
I can start. Yes. I don't know if I would say the same thing a year ago, because I feel like my job is moving every few months. One thing I'm still working very hard on not doing is definitely telling people what they need to do. I don't want to tell people they need to do that or they need to do that. Instead, I'm used to challenge them on their decision. I'm used to explain them, okay, but if you do that, did you think about this one? If you go that way, have you considered that team moving in the same direction? Basically what I'm trying to explain is I want them to realize what I think I detected, and sometimes I'm wrong. But for sure, I will never tell them, you need to do that, or you need to do that way. Oh, we're sharing one. Cool.
I would say selecting technology. This is kind of a very specific example, but something I had to be careful not to do myself. Once I sort of took over the management role, at PagerDuty, being careful not to say, okay, I want to use this particular tech stack or this other tech stack, and making sure that that decision was, it had to make sense, but those ideas came from our senior engineers. So they sort of decided what they wanted to do and said, hey, we want to do this, and I guess I was looking to see, like, is everyone on board with that, or is there, like, a lot of dissension with that? But me, myself, deciding, what technology we're going to use, I tried to stay out of that.
Deploying code.
They take away your production code access.
I still have access. I'm just very disciplined to stay away from it. Yeah, I mean, anything to do with the day-to-day development of code, I stay away from it. I do, all of this has to do with the context of your company, the growth of your company, where they are. When you're a small company, you probably have to wear multiple hats as a manager. It's just reality. So earlier in my career, I used to choose tech, you got to do this, used to deploy code, just do those things. But at the level of my company now, and where I'm at in my career, I don't do any of that. But there's still the requirement in my company to determine whether or not someone's a good programmer. So I can't do that without looking at code. So part of that evaluation comes from me looking at pull requests. But I don't comment, I just look at it.
Okay, so a lot of what you guys are saying is, production, doing deploys, making technical decisions, and really telling people what to do. It brings to mind earlier today during the office hours, I was talking to somebody who they're at a very flat company, and they specifically they had a CTO leave, specifically did not hire a new one. So when you're in a situation like that where your company specifically says, we're not going to have one person over everything, how do you be a good engineering manager in that environment where you don't have formal authority to say, this is how it's going to be?
I'm sort of in that environment. We preach and we try to live self-organization. So we want all of our Scrum teams to be self-organized to the point where we don't want our tech leads being the be-all, end-all say in the technical decision. They have to, solve impasses and things of that nature, but they're not the smartest person in the room. They're not the one driving the technical thought. They're fostering that within the team. Sometimes it's them because they're a member of the team as well, and that rolls up to me as well. I'm not involved in the day-to-day, and so I have to create, as you were saying in your keynote, have to create an environment where they can feel comfortable to make these decisions on their own. And the way you do that is just to enforce quality decisions that were made, call it out publicly, and to get that same behavior over and over again.
I think we did exactly that mistake, saying to everyone, up to maybe 30 employees, we are a flat company, we are a flat company, we are a flat company. What people understand when you say flat company is like CEO rest. And it turns out that as you scale, it won't work. So if I would recommend you to do something, is don't use the word flat. Just say that you want everyone to have an impact. You want everyone to be able to take decisions. You want everyone to move the business in one direction. But that doesn't mean it's a flat organization. It could be, as Spotify did, some squads organization where every squad is definitely on a flat organization, but each of them has responsibilities and accountabilities so that when you have or want to push something, you don't need to ask the other 59 people in the company that are exactly at the same level than you. So don't use flat.
So I think in terms of we were talking about centralizing tech decisions, like at the top with a CTO or something like that. I think that it's important that a company, like you can go kind of both ways on this, and you want to make sure that you decentralize decisions as much as you can, but you can go too far with that, where you basically have each team sort of picking their own languages and databases, and it can get very complicated to do things, actually, that as a manager you want to do, like be able to move people between teams. Well, if every team's using a completely different tech stack, that's really hard to do. I think that you can do it with a CTO at the top. I think you can also do it by sort of getting the senior engineers in the company into a room and sort of everyone sort of sits down and we pick like what technologies we want to use collectively. But I do think you want to make sure that you aim down the middle of that one. Not totally authoritarian at the top, use this technology, but also not every team or every individual even can kind of pick their own.
Yeah, to that point, we define a framework and a box, essentially, that you can make decisions within. So as a company, we use PHP. We use it on our devices. We make devices that do backups for data on networks, and it runs PHP. Most people go like, what? Yeah, that's what we do. And so, yeah, that's a thing that's defined by our CEO. He didn't know anything else other than PHP. That's what he built it on, and he built a billion-dollar company on it. So we're like, okay, well, he knew what he was doing. So that's what we decided to do, is have a box to work in.
Okay. So let's say that you're, whether in a more flat organization or more structured, there's going to be disagreements. You get a lot of people. As an engineering manager, how do you effectively disagree with people, whether they're below you, like individual contributors on a technical decision, or management on an executive business level thing? How do you effectively disagree with people and have your point of view shared, but not burn bridges?
There is something we do a lot at Algolia, is really trying to solve problems. So when someone proposes something, when someone wants to go in one direction, we always ask, okay, what do you want to solve? And why is your solution solving it? So it's not about saying, no, it's wrong. It's, again, making them realize, wait, why would you use that specific language that you are the only one knowing to solve an issue that is company-wide? Or why are you going in that direction? Because the problem is actually there. So I think making sure that you guys are fixing the right problem by writing the issue first. Just be sure that you guys align with the team, align with your developers on the issue you want to fix before actually asking them to propose and submit answers.
That reminds me of something I've used in the past. I make people define failure. If you want to do something, how do we know if it failed or not?
Yeah, I think one thing you want to do, especially in engineering, I don't know why this happens, I think more in engineering than in other fields, is that people can become very tangled up with the decision. Like in other words, people will take it very personally if you know someone's voting down their particular choice of product or feature or technology or whatever. And it's really important to sort of remind people like, hey, you know, you should suggest things. We might not go with them, but that's not necessarily anything wrong with you. It might not even be a bad suggestion. It's just we had to do something different, or we decided something else made more sense. So I think that technique really helps. And then I think something else that we've done too is we try going into a decision to make it very clear sort of what responsibility the different people have, like who's actually making this decision. You know, who do we want to make sure that we've heard input from, but you know they're not actually going to make the decision, and who do we need to make sure we communicate the decision out to after it's been made. And if you kind of go into it very clear, like, okay, these are the people you have to get on board, these are the people you need to consult with, that can also really help kind of keep things moving along.
All that's great. The one thing I would add is it has to be ingrained in the culture of the company to foster collaboration, debate, and having the best ideas win. In the context of what winning means, you know, it could be the best tech, but bad business decision. So at Datto, we hire for that. We specifically ask questions about, I use a question that I like to ask, if you were to use a human relationship to describe your relationship with your code, what is it? And anyone that says baby, I immediately go, well, what if I say your baby's ugly? Like, typically you want to fight me if that happens, right? So the best answer is third cousin, if you're looking for the best answer. You're somewhat invested in them, but not too much. And that's what it is our environment, our culture supports that, and therefore makes it really easy for me to bring up those conversations to create an environment of open dialogue.
To add on that, at Algolia we have a strong ownership culture, so we make sure that everyone can be owner of a topic, of a project, of anything. And we will ask that project owner, that topic owner, to take the decision. It will be his responsibility or her responsibility to collect the feedback, but we won't have a consensus, and we don't want a consensus. It's okay, it's okay. But it will be her responsibility to decide in which direction to go based on this feedback. And if it fails, we will learn from that.
Just two sort of points I wanted to add. I think you're absolutely right. Consensus is nice when you can get it, but it can slow decision making down a lot. So you want to make very sure, like, where you're going to use consensus. It's like where you absolutely need to. And yeah, I think that's definitely something worth.
You're really looking for buy-in.
Yes.
You know, intelligent human beings buying into a decision, whether it's theirs or not.
There's a phrase, disagree and commit, right? It's okay to disagree with something, and then once you do that, you know, you say your piece, but then you actually chase it as much as you can, as though it were your own idea.
All right, let's see what other people are interested in, not me. Aren't you afraid to lose contact with the tech if you don't code? Making reviews, recruitment, and making code, reviews, and recruitment and mentoring harder.
Yes, but there's ways to get around that. Oh, can I answer?
Yeah.
I just was really excited about the question. Like that was my initial thought, because at previous companies I did code, right? So I wore both hats. I was in smaller companies. When I came here, it was new, not different tech stack. I can if I want to, similar to you with JavaScript. You have to develop techniques to collect the information. So what I do is I actually do peer reviews, and one of the questions is code quality. I have everyone that's you know, a peer to someone on a team provide feedback on what they think about their teammates' code quality. I also challenge the engineers to point me at a pull request that they're really proud of that can demonstrate some quality that they've produced. And just different data points to formulate an overall picture of the person reporting to you.
I do personally code. It's not a lot of my time, but I still code. Maybe the frustration comes from I cannot work on big topics. Of course, I don't have enough time today to really focus my energy there. So I'm mostly focusing on quick fixes, quick wins. I do try to do pull request reviews, But again, I think that's something you will need to deal with. At first, I was pretty sure that I won't like not to code, but it's actually something that you can replace and be happy slash be satisfied in your day-to-day job by doing something else. For instance, if I help a teammate avoiding or fixing a roadblock or moving faster or going further, I think that's enough. We don't need to write the lines to actually benefit from that feeling.
Yeah, I'd say, start from the premise that you're a people manager, right? What you want to do is build relationships with your people. And you can basically answer this question, how do you stay in touch with what's going on by you could do that by reviewing code and architecture diagrams and artifacts, or you can do it by basically talking to the people on your team and saying, hey, tell me about what you're building. What are you like? What's difficult for you? What are you most proud of? And they can basically walk you through what they're doing. And the funny thing is like as a co-founder, I learned that this actually worked even outside of engineering. I would talk to our accounting group about what they were up to and what they found difficult. And in addition to like learning a little bit about accounting and getting kind of like some street cred with them, I also just got to know the people in that department better. So I'd say the word of advice would be, use the tools, look at the code reviews every once in a while, but I would say that people should be your main resource for understanding what they're doing, if that makes sense.
And I'd add that learn the vocabulary. Because if you know the vocabulary of accounting, then you can get the accountants to open up to you. The same with engineers. You know the right words to say, they'll just open up. What's the one single decision that you made that had the biggest impact on the whole company, either positive or negative impact?
Well, so as a co-founder, in the beginning of the company, you're making all kinds of decisions that you have no idea how long they're going to last. And it's actually really interesting. You basically have made tech decisions that you're paying people for the next 4 years or longer to undo. And they're like sort of looking at you going like, how did you ever come up with this? This is a terrible design. You're like, yeah, I know. I'd like to say I was trying to make some kind of clever optimization to move faster, but to be honest, I think I spent 30 seconds thinking about it, and had I spent 5, we would have done much better. So it's kind of very humbling, actually.
So I've been fortunate enough in any of my VP or director positions to actually have influence on the company's success or failure, and that's kind of heavy. So recently, I made a decision to take a certain engineering practice that was under the software engineering role and move it into different parts of the company. So I inherited a team for one of our products based out of Boston, and on that team had DevOps engineers, infrastructure engineers, and I forget what this other guy was. But I moved them into different parts, their corresponding roles within the company. That's great. The idea was it was one guy doing each of those functions, and I needed to have like pass the bus test. I needed it to persist past them. And so that was the idea, and I thought I timed it really good. Well, the idea in practice in theory sounded really good, but unfortunately, I needed those guys to work closer with me in an outage recently. And so I'm questioning whether that was the right timing on that decision. It basically cost a lot of MRR. Not going to get into how much, but it had an impact.
I think one thing we did, and I won't take all the credits there, but at the very beginning of the company where we really need to scale the team, I would say no, a strong no, if I'm not convinced by a candidate. I wouldn't hire someone just because we need to hire someone. Yes, we were struggling. We had like 10 open positions, and we really need those guys, really need those people. But at some point, when you are super small, you need to trust them. You need to make sure that when they join the company, you could rely on them. You could have them around the table. At that time, kind of a co-founders group, You need to make sure that they will go the extra mile. I think saying no when you are not convinced at the beginning is one definitely of them. Another one that reminds me, saying no to customers, especially big customers, asking for new features. And this has nothing to deal with engineering management. But I think it's something we did right at Algolia. Again, I won't take all the credits there, but saying no, we won't do that is good. And if you don't think that the feature asked by that gigantesque customer will benefit from all your customer base, say no.
I believe that's all the time we have, but thank you very much. I'm sure we all learned a lot. I know I did, and it's been great talking to you. Thank you.